Yes, guys, good morning. Welcome to our today's class. This is our first class for our CCNA2. Remember that CCNA2, we are going to be focalized on wireless and security, all right? But beside that, we are going also to talk about switching. We are going to be focalized on switching. We are going also to discuss about wireless, most wireless access point, how to configure, how to manage, how to troubleshoot, how to connect, or how to design a wireless networks or wireless local area networks. And we are going to talk about security the most. We are going to discuss about security. Remember that we did few things about security, but here in CCNA2, we are going to go a bit deeper. So the main objectives for this particular certification is switching. We're going to talk more about switches. We are going to talk about wireless local area networks, WLAN, and we are going to talk about security, how to secure like ourselves, how to secure computers, how to secure printers or devices in general. Yes, sir. So for that, as you know, you are doing a wonderful qualifications, and these qualifications will allow you to work in different areas. From these qualifications, you can move forward. You can do whatever that you like later on. But what I'm going to do now, you know that you are going to be Cisco engineer, and for that you need different skills when it comes to computer repair, like operating systems and so on. So today's lesson, I'm going to be focalized on what we call a motherboard. So as you know, when you have your phone, there is a motherboard, right? When you have like your switch, there is a motherboard, right? When you have like your computer, there is a motherboard, right? Router's got motherboard. So we are going to be focalized on that particular board, right? So the main objective for this today's lesson, first session for our CCNA2 is motherboard. And for this particular session, you need like a blank paper. Nontokoso, please, can you give them blank papers? So when I'm explaining, you need also to draw together with me in order for you to understand better, right? When you understand that concept of motherboard, it will allow you to move fast to switching. Not only for switching, I know that you are going not only to troubleshoot networks, you're going also to troubleshoot computers, right? But, and when we are talking about computers, you need to understand better what we call a motherboard. And from that particular perspective, you can move fast, and whatever that comes when it comes to computer problems, you will know what exactly is the issue, right? So this academy is not only about having your final CCNA certifications, but is to prepare you to be a fully IT support engineer, somebody who knows from the computer perspective up to networks, right? Some of the guys got the CCNA qualifications, but when it comes first to understand like properly how like a computer operate, those guys got difficulties, right? But if you can understand from the basic level how a PC works, from there, you will know even what goes wrong or how to connect that particular computer to other computers. So this week, I will help you. We're going to go through how to do basic installations, how like a computer works. And from there, we are going to discuss about the operating systems, how to install operating systems. So this week, you're going to be able to jump and to master those skills, right? I'm going to use one of the program. I don't know if it's Paint, just for explanations. I got the difficulties with my Microsoft Word, so I will have like problems when it comes to type, right? So my Microsoft is expired, so I'm waiting for it to be fixed, right? So be with me. I'm going to try to share my screen. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Yeah. So as I said, we are going to talk about motherboard, right? What is a motherboard? This is what we have first. And what is a motherboard, right? What is a motherboard? As I said, when you have your phone, there's a motherboard. When you got your tablet, there's a motherboard. When you got your computer, there's a motherboard. When you got a switch, there's a motherboard. When you have a wireless access point, there's a motherboard, right? So what is a motherboard, right? So we can define it as a printed circuit board, right? I can just try to type it properly, right? It's a printed circuit board, right? So a motherboard is just a printed circuit board. From that board, right, you are going to connect, right, all other components, right? So from the motherboard, you're going to find principal component of a computer. Principal component of the computer. Yeah. So from the motherboard, you are going to find all other components. So a motherboard is a printed board. On that particular board, you are going to find all other component of your PC, like of your phone, of your tablet, of your switch. Means that your PC will have different like components. Those components will be connected, will be on the motherboard. This is the meaning. And number three, what we can say is your motherboard also will have what? Connectors. Those connectors will allow other devices to be slotted into, right? This is what you have to understand. So I'm going slowly by slowly, guys. I said we are talking about a motherboard. Why I'm starting from there? Because I know that we are going to talk more about switches, wireless access point, and so on, right? You have to understand the concept of a motherboard, right? When we are talking about a motherboard, you have to understand that we call a motherboard a printed circuit board. That board, you can find it on your phone, tablet, switches, routers, computers, and so on, right? That circuit board, that motherboard will allow so other components to be fitted. So all other components will be on the motherboard, right? And your motherboard will have connectors. Those connectors will allow other devices to be slotted into, right? This is the meaning. So other smaller devices will be slotted on the motherboard. Like you have your keyboard, right? Your keyboard will be plugged where? On the motherboard, right? But from inside, you're gonna see that port where you always plug your keyboard. But basically means what? That port is where? On the motherboard, right? when you plug your mouse, you are plugging where? You are plugging on the motherboard, right? This is the whole idea of a motherboard, right? Now, how this motherboard works, right? This is what we are going to talk about now. I don't know how to, I've never used this program, but I'll try my best to do something, right? Now, we are going to talk about some of the important components that we are going to find on a particular motherboard, right? So when we talk about this motherboard, right, you need to understand that this motherboard will have what we call a chipset, right? So a motherboard from the basic level will have what we call a chipset, right? Now, that chipset will allow communication between all other devices, right? So a motherboard will have a chipset, right? That's a chipset will allow other component to talk, right? So the chipset will connect other components and allow communication to happen, right? So a motherboard will have a particular chipset. That chipset will allow the motherboard to connect other components, right? So the chipset will do what? Will also, it's like this chipset will control communication between components, right? As you know that your motherboard will have so many components, right? And connectors, right? Now those components will start like talking. How they're gonna talk? They need to be managed. They need to be controlled by a chipset. So a motherboard will have a chipset. That chipset will control, will manage the communication between all other components that you can have, right? Let me show you. Let me just type motherboard chipset, right? Yeah, so you have a motherboard here, right? But let me go to this particular picture. I don't know if there are some pictures. I cannot even find some nice pictures. Okay, let me just say, okay, so this is a motherboard, right? You can see it, how it looks like. Now, this motherboard will have a chipset. That's I'm trying to click, I don't know what's going on with my internet. With chipset label. Let me try to, so I'm trying just to pick up a picture. Yes, this one is a good picture for me. Yeah, right? So this is what you have to understand about motherboard. So motherboard will have a chipset, like a component. That component will control the rest of the components. So when the rest of the component want to talk, they have to pass by the chipset, right? When you are clicking, when the keyboard want to talk with the processor, when the keyboard want to talk to the screen, they have to be managed by a chipset. It's a chipset that's going to be the mastermind, right? This is the whole idea. So now what you have to do, you are going to draw like a rectangle, right? Before even drawing, let me go to my tool that I'm using today. Which one can I use? I'm using, oh, Paint, okay. Okay, let me delete this one. Now, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show you how I have to draw it. Okay, from home. Let me make it a bit bigger. So this is your motherboard, right? It's gonna be like a rectangle, right? So as I said, your motherboard will have a chipset. Now, we do have two types of chipset, right? We do have two types of chipset. Two types of chipset. Right? We do have what we call like a south bridge and a north bridge, right? So when we're talking about motherboard, we spoke about a chipset that will control the rest of the component. That chipset will be divided in two. There's a south bridge and a north bridge. So it means what? When you have a particular motherboard, especially for a computer, right? That motherboard will have two chipsets, but two of them, we call them chipsets. Now, one is a south bridge and another one is a north bridge. Let me show you from the picture where you can see from this picture, there is one that we call a north bridge and there is what we call a south bridge, right? So from the motherboard. Now, you are going to draw like I did here, right? And inside your drawing, you can put here this is your north bridge. I'm going to put it N, right? And this is your south bridge. And those two, they are connected, right? So when you are drawing a motherboard, you have a blank paper. So one you put north bridge and one you put south bridge. From the picture, you can see here, there's a north bridge and there is a south bridge, right? So make sure, guys, you are going to understand this. From this one, it will allow you to understand so many things from the switch perspective, router perspective, right? Now, what is the job of this north bridge, right? This north bridge, this chipset will connect fast component, and this south bridge will connect slow components. So, north bridge connect fast components. And the south bridge connect slow components. So when we talk about a north bridge, that chipset will connect fast component. So, and south bridge will connect slow component. Means this, when you have your PC, when you have your switches, your routers, some components are very fast and some components are very slow, right? The fast component, when they want to talk to each other, they must pass by the north bridge. So the north bridge will control the communication between fast components. The south bridge will control the communication between slow components. So when you look at the motherboard, when you look at your switch, your routers, your PC, and so on, you must say that inside my phone or inside my routers, my switches, my wireless access point, some components are fast and some components are slow, right? The first component, when you want to talk to each other or to other, the component, they have to be controlled by the NOT bridge, that particular chipset, that particular component. And when the slow one want to talk, they have to be controlled by the south bridge, right? Now, the main question is, what are the fast component and what are the slow component, right? When we're talking about the fast one, right? When we're talking about the fast component, the first one, fast component are your processor, or what, or CPU, we call it a central processing unit. So your processor is the fast component, right? So your processor is connected where? To the NOT bridge. We do have main memory and memory, like your RAM. Remember that your computer will have what we call the main memory or the primary memory, right? We call it RAM. It's also the fast component, right? Beside this, we do have what we call like anything related to videos and sound. Video card and sound card. Most of them also, especially, okay, let me just say the video card. It's very fast also, right? So from the drawing here, what you have to do now, you're gonna say this. Let me use another color maybe. So you're gonna have money. You're gonna have your processor here. Your pin, your processor will be connected to the NOT bridge. And from this side, you're gonna have what? Your RAM slot, right? We call it the RAM slot, this part. Then put it like R. So those are the slot where you're going to fit the main memory, right? So the NOT bridge will connect to the processor, will be connected also to the RAM slot. RAM slot is where you're going to fit the RAM. You see here, this is the slot where the main memory will be fitted. Beside that, there is also what? There's gonna be the slot for what? The slot for video card. Video, V here, right? This is how the NOT bridge is connected. So the NOT bridge will connect the processor, RAM slot, and the video card. So when you are drawing, it's very easy. You draw your motherboard, you put the NOT bridge, the south bridge. From the NOT bridge, you put your processor. There's a processor slot where you're gonna fit your processor. There's a RAM slot where you're gonna fit your RAM. And there's a video card where you're going to fit anything that's related to video. You see when you can see the images like on the screen, because there is a card, there's a component that deal with video. Sometimes when the image is not like clear and so on, you can update your video card, or maybe you cannot play games and so on, you can change your video card, right? This is how it looks like. Now, the south bridge. This south bridge will connect what? Slow component. What are the slow component? There are a lot, right? When you talk about the hard disk drive, right? The disk, drives, and so on. Those are the slow components. Now, you can just come here. When you go to your drawing, you can just put like something here. We call it the ID, where you're going to fit your hard disk drive, right? So it's a place where you're going to fit what? Your hard disk drives. You can Yeah, you're going also to have what we call the serial one, the SATA one, the serial, we call it the SATA, serial attachment. Right? So the south bridge will connect the rest, right? Like your UA, right? So the slower one will be connected from the south bridge, right? The ID and so on. So this is the main idea how the processor, no, how the motherboard works, right? Now, those thin line that you can see here, this is what we call buses, right? So these lines that you cannot see, called what? Buses. This is where data flows and power flows. When you look at the motherboard, you're going to see the thin line that connect those components. We call those thin lines buses, right? So data and power will flow from those thin lines, right? Now, the most important components here, we spoke about the processor, we spoke about the RAM, we spoke about the video card, we spoke about the ID and CATA. So there are two ways you can, your hard drive can be SATA or ID. So from this main picture, you as a specialist, when you have a problem like with like a processor, you know how they look, right? You can go here from the processor. When you have a problems with RAM, with the main memory, you know that those are the RAM slot. When you have a problem that deal with video card or images, you can go here. When you have a problem with hard drives, you have to update your servers, you can go here, right? So this is the main like idea. When you go to your picture here, you can see, right? There's a north bridge, there's a south bridge, right? There's a memory slot, they are here, and there is a processor slot or processor socket. They are here. You can see the SATA we spoke about for hard drives, right? The AGP, this is for images, the video card, you can call it also the accelerated graphic port, the AGP, right? And the PCI is for additional components. So when you go here, you can also add from the south bridge, you can also add what we call the PCI. The PCI is for PCI. So PCI is for additional components. Remember that you can have your motherboard. Sometimes you want to add like a wireless card, right? You can put that wireless card, you fit it there on the PCI slot. Suppose like you want your computer to behave like a TV, right? To watch some channels, you can buy a TV card. But where you are going to fit it, you're going to fit it on the PCI slot on this one, the PCI slot. So those PCI slots, those yellow ones, right, will allow you to add additional components to your computer. Suppose like you have few USB port, right? You want to add more, you can buy the internal USB port. It's going to be like a card that's going to come with many USB port. You're going to come and fit it there. Suppose like you want a modem, but which type of modem? Not the external one. You want the internal one. You're going to buy the modem card. That modem card, you're going to fit it here, right? This is the meaning. So whatever that I've explained, I want you to have your white paper where you're going to draw like a square. You have to show me your north bridge, and you have to explain on top what the north bridge can do. You have to draw for me the south bridge. You have to show me what are your video card, your AGP, your accelerated graphic port, and what your video card can do. You must show me your slot for RAM, for the main memory. You must show me your processor. You must show me your south bridge, and you must show me your SATA, where you're going to plug your hard drives, and your IDE. Remember, the IDE and SATA is for hard drives, but different one. The SATA use the small cable that we're going to see later. The IDE use the bigger one, right? So just to have an idea first, I wanted you to do that before me sending the second part for our sessions, right? So I will do my best to finish with what? To finish with this part in order for you to move better. So as a specialist, when you open a motherboard, you're going to have an idea because it's something that you are dreaming, something that you are drawing. You can tell somebody, you can just take a pen, you say, I can show you the whole motherboard, how the motherboard looks like and how the motherboard works. I can draw every component using my hand, right? From there, you're going to be a better technician, right? A better specialist. But the CCNA qualification, it's much more higher than this. But for you to become again more better, you have to know the basic stuff. When you have a good understanding, you can direct your team. When there is a problem, you will know that no. And remember, most of the time, servers, you have to update servers. You have to fit new memories. You have to change processors. You have to fit a new component. You are going to have switches. Those switches that you have to update slots. How you are going to add new slot, new port when you don't know what is a motherboard, how a motherboard operates, right? So thank you very much for our first session. I'm going to send the second session, but before sending the second one, I have to see. And later on, you're going to have your blank paper with all the motherboard components, and you can tell, you can explain what is the job of every component. Thank you very much, guys.